In this special edition of Liter Media Live, we want to introduce to you the new Executive Director of the Ross County Historical Society, Mr. Andrew Hall. Good to have you here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me to come and talk today.
Sure thing. We want to get to know him a little better here in just a moment with possibly the plans he has ahead, and not too far around the corner is Statehood Day, which will probably be one of the big events. So details coming up in just a moment, but first this from Andy Tomlinson with Tomlinson Insurance Agency.
This is Andy Tomlinson. When insuring what's important to you, our agents are there when you need us the most. Tomlinson Insurance, for the best coverage at the best cost. Visit us online at tomlinsonins.com to learn more.
Well, new director for the Ross County Historical Society, Andrew Hall. And Andrew, welcome to Chillicothe.
Well, thank you so much. I've been having a great time since I started, coming out here.
Yeah, you've been here, about 3 weeks at this time?
Coming up on my 1 month mark here sometime next week.
Okay, very good. First of all, tell us your history, imagine that. Pardon the pun. History, you had a lot of time in Columbus with the Ohio History Connection.
I did, yeah. So I spent the last close to a decade of my career at the Ohio History Connection, doing a variety of different things, mostly managing their large-scale public programs, so any of the large-scale public events that they would do. Most notably in this area, I know folks know about their Dickens of a Christmas, All Hallows Eve, the Halloween event that they would do. And then I actually spent the last 4 years helping to manage the Ohio Village, so the little living history site that was attached to the museum before coming down here.
And that included a little refurbishment, didn't it?
It did. So Ohio Village just celebrated its 50th anniversary this past summer. And as that season closed, the village actually closed down for a while for major renovations and kind of revamping in order to help preserve it for another 50 years from now.
We like hearing that. Our viewers know that I have a long-standing relationship with the Ohio Village Muffins, and that's where they play, Muffin Meadows.
Yep, that is their home field.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be missing it for a little while during the renovations, but it sounds like they've got quite a few teams and other fields who are happy to welcome them in the interim.
Yes, in fact, we've had other games with him at other locations due to COVID shutting down.
Of course.
The Ohio History Connection and more. But you hail from the Dayton area, so you're very much involved with Orville and Wilbur Wright and the birth of our true birth of flight.
Yes. So I've actually been living in the Dayton area for the past almost 5 years now, especially. I've gotten really interested in the history there, especially with, the Miami River Valley flood that happened, and Dayton and a lot of areas in Ohio were very impacted by that. Like you said, First in Flight, Dayton's association with National Cash Register, and a lot of the other big companies here in Ohio. I just find all the local history fascinating.
Yeah, and Mead Paper began here, but found its heyday in Dayton as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Ohio is such a really fascinating, interconnected community.
Yeah. What drew you to Ohio's first capital?
Well, honestly, I have been fascinated with Ohio statehood pretty much my whole life. My parents did a great job in taking us out to historic sites and museums when we were young, really fostering that interest in history as well. So by the time I got to college, it was no surprise that I was studying history. I kind of, like everybody else does, I started out kind of generally, but of course, over time, I just really kept finding myself drawn back and back to Ohio. And I actually did my graduate school work on early Ohio statehood. So most of my research and a lot of the work I did was focused around Ohio's role in the War of 1812 and how that was really a galvanizing moment that truly made Ohio the state that it is today.
Yeah, a lot of history here, no question. Some of us take it for granted. It's hard to believe how many people live in Chillicothe, and they're along the lines of, first capital, whatever. But your job now is to not only preserve all that information, but also to spread the news to let people know, hey, this was a vital portion of Ohio's early history.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've been having a lot of fun learning more and more about Chillicothe since I've gotten here, learning about its importance in transportation, whether it be the canals or the railroads, early Ohio leaders, folks like Governor Tiffin, Thomas Worthington. There are all sorts of really key and influential figures in, honestly, the American narrative overall that come out of Chillicothe. And you're right. It's kind of a hidden gem here in Ohio that a lot of folks, even who live here, have a tendency to miss unless they know what they're looking for.
I know in my history with the Historical Society, it's amazing the things that have been collected for the museum. And at the Heritage Center, you'll find prehistoric items there that you'll not find anywhere else. And it's a large collection.
It's a phenomenally large collection that I'm even still wrapping my head around. And it's funny, you mentioned prehistoric objects, and I know just before we got on here today, we were talking a little bit about the Ohio History Connections Mastodon. Yeah. We have mastodon and mammoth bones in our collection that were found here in Ross County.
I was not aware of that.
Yeah, anything ranging from that to indigenous American artifacts all the way up until, we're still collecting for things today because, we often forget that today's stories are going to be tomorrow's history. So part of our job is not only to preserve that long-standing ancient history, but also the stuff that we're doing right now.
Yeah, I know in my visits to the Historical Society and the Heritage Museum, you think in some respects that history started where our government started, and it's way beyond that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The stories going back to, founding of government and things, those are really important milestones for us to remember. But like you said, they are not the start point. They are just another point along a long timeline of human activity and even just natural activity here in Ohio, whether you're studying the roles of people or animals or plants or even glaciers going across Ohio. It's the whole state has a fascinating subset of histories to study.
You talked about transportation. I know the canal is recognized in the museum, but so is railroad in a special way. I mean, it's incredible when you walk in there. You think, okay, this is more than a hobby. This is marking history.
Oh, yes. And for those listeners who haven't been, if you like trains in any way, shape, or form, we have some amazing railroad layouts that mimic what Chillicothe was like back in the 1930s. And like you said, you're not going to see anything quite like it just about anywhere else you go.
There's a wonderful statue there that was brought in, 10, 15 years ago, thereabouts, that stood in the National Museum there in Washington, D.C. It's now part of our museum. But the bandwagon, that's pretty cool in my thought, and also the history that we have with the automobile industry as well.
And that goes back to what we were just saying before. There's so much, especially local history, that folks just don't recognize. They don't see how amazing and storied their community actually is. So that is a major part of our mission in trying to help folks recognize just how special this town actually is.
In your graduate work and everything, did you make trips here to Chillicothe and experience it firsthand?
I really wish I would have. This is the first time I've been back in Chillicothe since I was a small child brought here by my parents. And I've really, really been enjoying it between the just amazing architecture around town, all the preserved historic buildings, just the really nice folks that I've been encountering. And then, like I mentioned, the history and the stories. I'm a sucker for a good story.
A number of years ago, Pat Meddert had put together a nice display on opera houses, and I had no clues how many opera houses were here in Chillicothe back in the day during the entertainment phase.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, it kind of boggles the mind to think that a somewhat smaller city in Ohio, we usually think of Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati. But, Chillicothe had an amazing culture scene. The fact that we had 2 opera houses in and of itself should tell you that, and shows just how interconnected this city had been and still is.
Yeah, and the importance of having the Majestic Theater still being operational all these years.
What a lovely little gem that Chillicothe still has.
Yeah. Not too far from now, we'll have Statehood Day. This will be your first experience. And when we look at this, that's where usually Adena Mansion and Gardens is involved. You've got the Lucy Webb Hayes Heritage Center, David Nickens Heritage Center, and more that will all be open and available for people to traipse through and enjoy our history.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to be working with all the other museums that you just mentioned to help coordinate and raise awareness of those open days to try to get as many folks in our museums as we can, especially those who maybe either have never visited or haven't come since they were, in 3rd or 4th grade coming on their mandatory class field trip.
You got about 100 days to get ready for that.
Oh, yeah, we got plenty of time.
Time is history, right?
Absolutely.
Anything that we've missed you wanted to throw out there? I know you've got some goals ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, over the course of the coming months and years, I'm just really looking forward to getting to know Chillicothe and just its complexities, its nuances, and all of its quirks. I'm looking forward to getting to know the people here, forming connections with the community. But one of the big things I really want to do is help folks see themselves in the history, in the narratives that we're sharing. Because in order for it to feel relevant, in order for it to feel important, you got to have a personal stake. So, of course, we're going to continue sharing all the big history, the big names, the important events and things like that. But I really want to also focus on collecting the personal stories, the little things that are passed down from person to person in a family. Because for as important as those grand narratives are, those personal narratives are what helps make history feel real. So I look forward to a fruitful community engagement effort in trying to showcase stories, objects, and just, again, all those little quirks that make Chillicothe so unique.
Yeah, I mean, you've got governmental officials, you've got athletes, and in the same respect, businesses. I mean, like Globe Furniture has been around for more than 100 years.
Absolutely.
And the same with our sponsor today, Tomlinson Insurance Agency, more than 150 years. So those are key elements that sometimes get lost in history.
And those stories are important. No matter how big or small, everybody has a connection to this town's history, and it should be respected and remembered.
Very good. Again, if you want to learn more about the Historical Society, you've got a web address. Have you memorized it yet?
Yes, you can find us at rosscountyhistorical.org. You can find us on social media at similar handles. And also you can just stop by anytime. Tuesday through Saturday, we are open from 1 to 5.
1 to 5, Tuesday through
Saturday.
All right, very good. Nice to have Andrew Hall in. Welcome to Chillicothe again, and looking forward to having a nice working relationship with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here.
Sure thing. And thank you also to Tomlinson Insurance Agency for being our sponsor of today's special edition of Litter Media Live.